I want to play a couple pieces of Bryce Harper audio and then obviously get everyone's reaction on what's going on. So let's get to more of what Bryce said from yesterday on Bussin With The Boys. This is a podcast, and, Bryce is choosing to make the rounds. So this is his choice. Obviously, we know he's unhappy with Dombrowski, by extension, the Phillies. Let's get to two notable things Bryce said, and then we'll react to it all. 215-592-9494. Here's more on sort of everything, but this starts with a discussion about a drink, and then Bryce finds a way to make it about him and baseball. Listen to this exchange from Bussin With The Boys.
But he's correct. It's elite.
Wow.
Get a zipper.
I don't know about elite things because I'm not elite anymore, so.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey. What the
I don't know, man.
Was that the GM?
It's a good word right there.
Was that the GM that said that?
President.
The president comes on, he does a press conference, he says Bryce is no longer an elite player.
Yeah. It is. I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, hold on.
So you play great instead of good.
You brought it up. Yeah.
But stay great instead of good. It's something like that, but that feels like it's like unheard of for anybody that high of a level to come on and kind of talk about a player like that.
Yeah, I don't think I think there's things within the organization that you probably shouldn't say in an outward expression, right? Like if I had a problem with you, I'd probably, if you were on my team, I'd probably bring you to the side and talk to you. And so I think that was one thing when I signed there was like, hey, we don't say anything about the organization outwardly or anything else. Make sure it's behind the closed doors, and if you have a problem, we'll talk about it.
All right, so that was Bryce, and again, this was a podcast that was released yesterday morning. I want to play one more piece of audio, then we'll react to it all. But here's more of Bryce from that podcast, and I am struck by how almost contradictory his purpose seems. He could have done a better job squashing this, obviously. I mean, he's in a tough spot. You can criticize. Okay.
Don't know if he wants to squash it, though.
That's my point. I want you to listen to something Bryce says here, and then ask yourself, doesn't this sound very contradictory given his approach? Listen.
I think the tough part is it's just a story that doesn't need to be out there. So when we get to spring training, it's going to be a story. People are going to talk to me about it. People are going to ask me about it. It's just it doesn't need to be a story.
Yeah, but you're making it a bigger story, dude.
Sure are.
But you're making it a bigger story. So what's your purpose?
His feelings are very hurt.
Very hurt.
This. And look, he has reason deep down to be like, hey, hold on. Does everyone remember that Dave Dombrowski is the one who built these teams that have failed these last several years? He's thinking, yeah, I didn't do as well as I wish I would have, but neither did he. Dave Dombrowski built these teams that failed. That's what he's thinking. Man, we all need to do better. It's not just me. So I can see how that would rub you the wrong way. If you're a player, you've got the main guy coming out and saying, hey, didn't have an elite season. Okay, we know that it bothers you, Bryce. You tell us that it doesn't. You tell us that it was wild and all that. Right. Wild translates to you didn't appreciate it. You didn't appreciate it, and now you're holding a grudge. And now that's not serving anyone positively. And your team needs you. Your team needs better players. Dave didn't necessarily give them better players this offseason, which compounds the problem if you're Bryce. This is, hey, hold on. Dave's pointing the finger at me. I see that he's got three pointing right back at him.
Well, yeah, Philly's been pointing the finger at Dombrowski. And I agree with you, John. I think Bryce is trying to point it at Dombrowski as well.
But then you can't really, though. It's like, these are my teammates.
Well, that's where it does get tricky. Look, here's the thing. In some ways, obviously, a show similar to yesterday, just overall reaction to the whole thing.
It's a mess.
And what you make, it is a mess. And what you make of it at 215-592-9494. But where I really want to sort of take it today is I want to ask you, I want to ask John and James and Rhea and everyone listening, how concerned are you about this situation? This Bryce Harper, Dave Dombrowski, Bryce Harper, Philadelphia Phillies thing, how concerned are you short term? I would define that as this season. How concerned are you long term? I would define that the remainder of what is 6 years, roughly $150 million roughly left on his contract. How concerned are you?
I'm trying not to think about that.
No, I get it. Talk to us at 215-592-9494. Let me tell you where I land on those two questions. Short-term, long-term concern. Here's where I land, but I'm curious where you are, 215-592-9494. All right, short term, this season, I'm not that worried. Now, I'm not pushing it aside like it's nothing because I think it could have some drag on team morale. But I will say I'm not that worried in the short term. I think he'll hit third. I think he'll play well. I think he should help to make the playoffs. I don't think this situation will be why they don't win the World Series if they don't. I don't think that's the crux of why they will or won't win it all. So short term, I'm not that concerned. It will probably have some drag on team morale, and that can hurt a squad, but I'm not that concerned. I have two main concerns on this situation. One is longer term, and one is in a whole different wing. My first concern is long term. Will he want out? Will they want him out? I've seen enough sports. I'm 47 years old now. I've seen enough sports to know this. When you have a player of this caliber, and I'm not saying he was what he was 5 years ago, but he's still pretty freaking good. I've seen enough to know when you have a player of this caliber or a coach of this caliber, something great of that caliber. Brian Dawkins, Mike Schmidt, Jay Wright, John Chaney, Steve Carlton, like some greats that I've seen. When you have one of them and then you don't, it's very hard to replace them with another. Or honestly, anything even close, typically. It's very, very, very hard. So my number one concern with this situation is long-term, will he want out? Will they want him out because of strife and just the drag of you just don't become as good, typically. I had Chase, Ryan, Jimmy, and Cole. Then at some point I didn't. And then, my team stunk. Now, granted, they stunk for a little bit with them because everything fell apart around them. Those guys weren't as good anymore. Bryce is better than those guys were at the end here. So I do still have a pretty freaking prime player, and I might not, next season. That worries me. That's concern number one. Concern number two, and I'll take your reaction to all this at 215-592-9494. Concern number two, actually, I'm going to look inward at myself, but by extension at you, John, James, Rhea, and everyone listening. And I'm going to speak from a fan standpoint. My concern is I just wasn't in the mood for another one of these as a fan. We're dealing with enough with AJ and Jalen and Weird Eagles stuff. And, that team seems to specialize in it, even though they do win an awful lot. But, it gets old. I mean, we're not that many years removed from James Harden saying, I don't want to play here. I refuse to play. We're not that far removed from Ben saying, I don't want to be here. I'm out. We're not that far removed from Carson Wentz. I just wasn't in the mood for another one of these. I was slower to climb aboard the Bryce thing than others. I was frustrated with him in 2019. I remember James and John telling me, get off his back a little bit. I was like, he's got to give you more. First half of 2019, he was pretty slow out of the gate. And then he rounded into form at the end of that year. And obviously, pandemic pushed that aside. It was a weird year with 60 games. He was good. But 2021, he took off like a freaking rocket ship. He won the MVP. 2022, they make the playoffs. And it was really fun. And it's been largely fun, although very disappointing in October. And I've generally enjoyed the Bryce Harper thing. It's been fun. I mean, my God, compared to freaking Nick Williams in right field or whomever.
We have a chance with Bryce Harper.
So,
we have a chance with Dave Dombrowski. They need to do better than they have. Right. That's the bottom line.
So my thing is, I just wasn't in the mood for another one of these. So, yes, part of it is about the team and the future and the concern that you could lose them. But part of it for me, and I'm guessing this might resonate with you, is just as a fan, you get tired of the struggle sometimes with your best players and your teams at each other's throats. Iverson and the Sixers, Lindros and the Flyers, Reggie left the Eagles. Of course, they left him. Sometimes you're just like, my God, other than Kelsey, when do we ever get a break where a guy stays the whole time? I guess Fletcher and Brandon Graham, but there's not many. There's not many. John, talk to me.
It's pro sports.
John,
It's
talk to me about your concern on this
human
situation.
beings. You've got a lot of variability with the way these guys are behaving. Is this team? My big question is this team close enough to the best teams in baseball to justify the way Dave Dombrowski's been spending? I know this is about Bryce. It's about Dave Dombrowski too. These are the two big figureheads for this team. Dave Dombrowski is upset with Bryce. And you know what? Maybe Bryce, maybe the act gets old behind closed doors in that clubhouse. I don't know.
Well, I think that's
it does
pretty
seem
clear.
like he's a little bit tempestuous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So Dave's sick of that. Bryce is sick of not having a good enough team every year.
Right.
These guys are butting heads, and this is what it looks like. That doesn't mean this season is a loss.
I agree with you on that.
This season can still be great. And I think Dave Dombrowski's saying, you know what? I'm done being friends. I'm going to try to do what I have to do to get this team where it needs to go. So now he's doing a little extra motivating. Bryce is not happy about it at all.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're going to have to move on from here. Everyone needs to be a grown-up. Everyone needs to manage this situation appropriately. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they're capable of managing this situation. I'm going to say, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because here we are.
Yeah.
They're at camp now. Like this could have been dealt with a little more effectively and a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But here we are. We're at camp. This team has a chance to do things.
Well, they do.
They have to get their stuff together, though, if
right.
they're going to do anything.
I'll use the Eagles in the last 3 years as an example. You can have strife and have all sorts of different results. 23, disaster. And there was strife. Okay?
When did the players stop trusting Dave Dombrowski's judgment? Has that begun already?
Well, probably.
That's a real concern.
Yeah.
If those rumblings are going on and Bryce is ticked off about all of it, that will gain steam in that clubhouse, in that locker room. That's what we don't want happening this year. If they win, things will be fun. Guys will be smiling. Think that can perpetuate. If they lose, watch out.
Yeah, well, look, the 24 Eagles are an example. You can have strife and overcome it. I mean, they had strife. Sure. Don't kid yourself. Check out December of 2024. AJ, Jalen, Brandon Graham. There's a lot going on. Team won Super Bowl 2 months later.
Yeah, we can't say this season is a loss before it even starts. This season could be great.
Yeah, but this does not help.
It doesn't help.
And the biggest concern I have is long-term.
But at least they're being real. At least they're being realistic now.
Is Bryce Harper a Philly 2, 3, 4 years from now? Because I still want him here. But I don't know if he'll want to be here. I don't know if they'll want him. That's my biggest concern long-term. Hard to replace guys like this. 215-592-9494. Where you stand on all of it. The question, how concerned are you about it? Talk to us. Joe DeCamara and John Ritchie, it's 94 WIP.